Hello, my dear viewers. I'm glad to be with you. I'm Olga Demchuk, a researcher of the inner world of the personality. At the beginning of my videos, I sometimes do little acted out sketches, and some people have written that they find them a bit unsettling. So today I decided to warn you in advance that I'm going to play a little, and I would ask you to observe what is happening inside you. What emotions are filling you? What do you feel? And I ask you to write it down either in your personal notes or in the comments under the video. So get ready. I'm sacrificing myself for you, constantly sacrificing myself for you. I have to keep enduring all of this all the time. This constant performance in front of the camera, writing scripts for every video, coming up with topics. I am not living my own life. I constantly have to do things I don't want to do. Do you think I want to make these videos? Do you think I have nothing else to do? Do you think I don't want to just lie down on this soft couch? I have to constantly keep up appearances, come up with outfits, and figure out how to look every time. I'm suffering so much. And what did you feel at that moment? What was happening inside you? What emotions were filling you? Pause the video and try to write it down. Just now I was behaving exactly like a martyr, a victim, and I entirely and unfairly shifted the responsibility. For every single thing that I do, I put it onto you, and you became the ones who were actually forcing me to do it. As you can see, I was a martyr, I was a victim who suffers, and here my own needs were completely erased, in other words, my own wants. I was doing all of this as if by force, without any personal desire, and most importantly, there was no genuine interest of my own involved. That is, I see myself as someone sacrificing for your sake. And in such a moment, you undoubtedly become the tormentors while I suffer and I feel a certain sense of sanctity. At the same time, I feel as if I am crucified, I am a martyr, and what I do cannot bring me any pleasure. And in all of this, in my theatrical speech, we could add, I don't want to sacrifice myself, I don't want to endure this, I don't want to do what I don't feel like doing, I don't want to conform. And if I add, I don't want to, but I do it, then at that moment the responsibility sort of shifts more onto me. That is, it's not as if I'm a captive, like a hostage of terrorists. Rather, I don't want to do it, but I do it. And then a person immediately has a question. Well, if you don't want to, then don't do it. Who's making you? And the most frustrating thing is when someone says this to us as we're voicing our complaints to them. It's all for you. I've done so much for you. And when someone tells us, well, I didn't ask you to, you shouldn't have done it, it really hurts us because we feel our theories starting to waver and we no longer seem as right and good as we thought we were. It's even worse if I realize that I'm doing it for myself. Me. I sacrifice myself, I sit down to write scripts, and every week I film videos. I do this for myself. I put up with certain inconveniences, but recording videos helps me fulfill myself, helps me share my thoughts with people. And I find myself in a kind of virtual club of like-minded people, my sort of colleagues. And this allows me to check how viable the theories I propose actually are. I do things I don't want to do. That is, I have to put up with some discomfort, think about what to wear for you, for the camera, to look aesthetically pleasing, because I enjoy watching my videos later, seeing an attractive picture. That makes me happy. That's why I do it for myself. I conform. In other words, I definitely have to censor myself on camera, but this censorship actually helps me present my thoughts in a structured way. not in chaos. So yes, there is a certain level of control. You see, as soon as I explain it, it all comes back to the fact that I do this for myself. At that moment, I stop being a martyr and I lose the right to make complaints or to cast someone else as the oppressor. This state of being a martyr, it follows us from early childhood. Back then, as children, we could have listed all these points. I sacrifice myself because I don't want to go to school. I'm doing this for you. I don't want to pick up my toys. I don't want to clean up or put things away in the closet. Well, who actually wants to do that? I endure it because I'm afraid of being rejected, of not receiving rewards, that my caretaking adults will be disappointed in me and I won't get my bonuses. I do things I don't want to do and meet my parents' expectations. But a child perceives all of this as a kind of torment. In other words, this state of being a martyr comes from our childhood, and to some extent, we were hostages of the environment we were born into, hostages of our family's patterns. And when we realize that this endurance, this self-sacrifice, is more about conformity and doing what I don't want to do was for myself, for the sake of survival, we lose this status of martyr and instead become a kind of conformist. These are people who have no principles and can change their stance instantly. In other words, they adapt to their environment, they conform to it. And then we lose the central idea that we carry within ourselves. This central idea influences many areas of our lives because we saw ourselves as martyrs, and I understand that the living conditions many people experienced in childhood, they were truly present there. Emotional and even perhaps physical abuse. I understand all of that. It is important for us, after all, to move to a higher level of generalization because I work with clients who lived in comfortable conditions, in a complete family, in material comfort, where there was no violence at all, and they still feel like martyrs. They still have something to tell about it. And for me, it was surprising that a person who was born into a family where there was abuse and, for example, a lack of money, and a person who was born into an educated family where they were not beaten, where there was more or less enough or even a lot of money, both of these people feel like martyrs because they truly have to do things they do not want to do. It's this constant feeling that you're pulling some kind of burden and that you'll keep dragging it until a certain point and then happiness will begin. That's why as children we invent our own religion. We come up with a kind of childhood God who becomes our guiding star, where we endure all of this, and then life will finally begin. This dream can't be about someone who will come and save me. Someone who, for example, will protect me and punish everyone who hurt me. And so the child projects the restoration of justice, at least in their own thoughts. Maybe it's the dream that I don't like this family, but I will have another family, and in my family things like this won't happen. Maybe it's a dream about some princess or prince whom I will meet and then I will live happily. Dreaming about some good people who will accept me, who will give me unconditional care, who will fulfill my wishes, and then I will feel whole, and finally I will feel truly good. And after that, the child does not reason about it at all. This religion helps them endure the difficulties that arise in life. For example, children who from an early age take on the role of parents, meaning they care for their parent, they dream that someone will take care of them. And this dream, in those circumstances, helps them survive, and there is no need to treat it as something to fight against. But later it becomes a kind of cage, a trap for the person, and a person remains in this state of waiting their whole life without even realizing it. A person is caught in this scenario, waiting for a miracle, waiting for that special someone, waiting for the arrival of talent or genius, a stroke of luck, and all other activity is essentially forbidden to them, though they are not aware of it. It is forbidden even to the point of hindering the evolution of their personality. Because at whatever age I dream this up, that is the age I must be when this opportunity arises. In other words, this artificial God creates loyalty to this particular religion. And this is that very ideal self. By conforming to it, we believe we will receive all these benefits. Some people realize sooner, others later, that no matter how much they try to conform, the promised benefits never actually arrive. And this moment of disappointment is always very difficult because you have to come to terms with the fact that for many years you lived in this artificial dollhouse, in this scenario, always waiting for something. I see how talented people who could have become fulfilled individuals, seem to keep waiting for something. And the second point, so this artificial God, this miracle we pray to, the second point is a special attitude toward activity. That is, when a person does something, engages in some activity, they always do it by forcing themselves. They don't actually need it. This constant doing for some people has become so ingrained, and they have come to believe so deeply in their own martyrdom that it seems as if they don't need activity for themselves at all. In other words, it's as if I'm not willing to do anything for myself. I need to be doing it for someone else, because of someone else, or at someone else's direction. Because what I really want is to lie down, to travel, be on vacation, eat chips, watch TV shows, or scroll through social media. That's what I want. But I don't want to be active. And sometimes a person finds themselves in this contradictory, ambivalent situation where one part of them wants to work, but the other part absolutely doesn't and actively sabotages any activity. I'm sure you've noticed yourself that when someone asks, for example, for help, or if guests are coming over, suddenly the cleaning gets done in 2 seconds. But for yourself, it's as if you don't need it. I don't need cleanliness for myself, only for others. Or, for example, when your boss gives you a task, suddenly enthusiasm appears from somewhere, but when you need to think about your own business or come up with an original idea, you feel stuck. And the person sabotages all activity. That is, for example, they decided to start their own YouTube channel, but then they begin to sabotage everything, because as soon as they get started, they feel like a forced martyr. It's as if they don't need any of this. And indeed, the part of them that is frozen in amber, waiting for that opportunity, truly doesn't need it. This is about living for someone else, or living in opposition to someone. In other words, a person essentially gets used to living according to a certain script in childhood. And they carry out this script. They may even feel like they are the scriptwriter of their own life. But in reality, they are like a puppet worn on someone's hand. And they are worn on the hand of their dominant pattern. That is, this is the main dominant pattern. At one time, it helped the child survive. This fantasizing, maybe I'm not really from this family. Maybe I have some special talents, and so on and so forth. This is that main dominant pattern, this very thing. It's the child's religion. It turns them into that rag doll on the hand, and the person, against their own will, starts to play out the same scenes with other people, the same script over and over again. That is, he makes the same complaints even though the people involved are completely different. These accusations, grievances, feelings of being a martyr, especially when something needs to be done, indicate that you are living out a childhood script. To put it in a slightly different way, this psychological tendency to get stuck in these childhood patterns is extremely hazardous, because we often don't even realize we're completely confined and restricted there. Furthermore, there is almost always a specific childhood dream or fantasy that helped the vulnerable child survive those difficult times. And this dream holds us tightly, and that's why everything else disappoints us, everything else feels wrong, everything else is not quite right. And the people who appear around us are always those who torment and mock us, precisely because they do not provide that unconditional care or the protection we need, or the understanding, the attentive listening, the acceptance. In other words, it seems to a person that they are searching for some external conditions in order to enter into this dream. But in reality, they are searching for their own inner state. That is, at the center of this dominant idea is the experience of being in a certain inner state. I believe that if you analyze your own life, you will see that these coincidences exist. They may be very small. Someone looked at you just the way you needed. Someone cared for you just the way you needed. Someone praised you just the way you needed. And in this particular psychological alignment, a person develops a deeply rooted and powerful dependence on others, but on others specifically as a direct instrument and a specific pathway to obtain the desired sensations. That is to say, a person is perpetually accommodating their every need and is constantly adapting to those around them. They do not bring into their awareness that what they are doing for themselves. And the most difficult realization for someone who has lived in such a dream is to understand that everything they have done, everything they do, they always do for themselves. To receive this bonus now or in the future, hoping to obtain it. And so we come to the thought that all of us, to some extent, are egoists who, even if they sacrifice themselves, they still live for themselves. I would like you to observe the activity that is perceived as if you are a galley slave, as if you are a prisoner. And if this arises, then try to feel what this part of your personality stuck in the past wants and try to bring it into consciousness. What it has become conscious and begins to influence us less. Today, specifically for your benefit, we will translate the phrase, "I do everything just for myself." Please take a moment to write down your personal impressions of this video in the comments. Maybe someone recognized something familiar from this story. Don't forget to share this with others and give us a like. Leave your comments, and let me remind you that tomorrow my most adventurous project, Connect, begins, where I will be conducting open psychoanalytic sessions. I will be analyzing the structures I work with and answering questions. In other words, this is an opportunity not just to hear about the inner world, but to enter it through the door that the client opens. It's like a guided tour into how we are structured on the inside. Come join us, and with that, I say goodbye. See you soon.